In this episode of The Frieze, the Yankees had a spring training game today against the Blue Jays, and Jordan Montgomery made his spring debut. Next, 3 players that absolutely must get off to a hot start in 2022. Then we'll talk about team health. Which players are trying to buck the injury-prone label? Next, the American League East. It's going to be a tough division. Which teams have improved the most? Next, we'll take a look at the Yankees' current 5-man starting rotation and who could be the first pitchers called up this season. Let's get started. I'm Derek, and this is The Frieze.
Good afternoon. How do you like that? Swings, and this is strike 3. And the Yankees win again.
Jordan Montgomery made the trip to the Blue Jays spring facility today to throw a little batting practice, giving up 3 runs on 6 hits in 1 inning. He actually came out in the first inning. He pitched just a third of an inning, throwing 28 pitches. They took him out of the game and then put him back in the second. One of those weird, wonky spring rules. You won't ever see that during the regular season unless Rob Manfred pulls out some other kind of weird rule. But tough day for the Yankees overall. Couple of positives, though. Gleyber Torres had 2 more hits. He's still hitting .667 this spring. Not that spring stats matter, but confidence matters, and it's good that he's gotten off to a decent start, as we mentioned. We got to see Oswald Peraza again today. He was 0 for 2. He remains hitless this spring. Yankees definitely off to a slow start this spring. Not much offense out of them, but hopefully, once things start to get into more regular rhythm and you see more guys getting regular at-bats, 3 and 4 at-bats near the end of spring, you'll see the offense round into form. And again, the pitching was a lot of extra guys today, a lot of bullpen, shuttle-type guys. But Jordan Montgomery, not a good outing. Last year, the Yankees got off to a terrible start, and occasionally that will happen, and you spend the entire season fighting an uphill battle. The Yankees this year need to come out swinging. No 5-11 starts. Come out and play with urgency from the very first pitch of the season. And specifically, there's a few players that I think could use the confidence boost of a quick start. Let's start with Joey Gallo. He's an incredibly valuable player according to the metrics. 4.7 WAR last season, one of the best defensive players in baseball, won a Gold Glove in 2021. But the Yankees didn't see the best of him. Overall on the season, he hit .199, he had 38 home runs, he had 213 strikeouts. But with Texas, he hit .223, and he had an .869 OPS and a .139 OPS plus, which when paired with his good defense is a pretty quality player. But with the Yankees, he hit just .160. He did have 13 home runs in 58 games, but he struck out 88 times in 188 at-bats. That is horrendous. We need Joey Fourbags to come out of the gate swinging the bat well. The Yankees play the Red Sox on opening day. It would go a long way towards his confidence if he could get the crowd behind him and have a big game versus the Red Sox on opening day and a big series versus the Red Sox. I just think that'll do wonders for him. It'll take off some of the pressure of having a bad couple of months with the Yankees down the stretch last year. And if you get off to a hot start, who knows? Maybe you become an all-star again. Gleyber Torres is another guy that I would argue needs to get off to a great start. He's had a couple of bad years in a row, and last year he had just a 93 OPS plus, so 7% below league average, a 0.8 wins above replacement, and he hit just .259 with 9 home runs, 51 RBIs. He did swipe 14 bags, which isn't bad, but he came into camp in great shape, so maybe he'll be a little bit swifter on the bases this year. When he was coming up through the minor leagues, he was a top prospect. He was an all-star in each of his first 2 seasons, had a ton of power in each of his first 2 seasons, 24 home runs at age 21. And just for reference, that's how old Anthony Volpe is this season. He's just going to be in Double-A. But Gleyber Torres was doing damage. And then in 2019, obviously the juice ball season, but 278 with 38 home runs and 90 ribbies. But he's really regressed in 2020 and 2021. In 2020, we all kind of blamed it on COVID. He was out of shape when baseball came back. But we figured that in 2021, he would get off to a better start and have a better year. But unfortunately, neither of those things happened. Ended up having his worst season as a professional, in my opinion. 697 OPS was a career low. If he comes out of the gate and gets off to a hot start and gets his confidence going, he's another guy that could be psychologically affected and have a great year. Remember, he hit 5 home runs in spring training last season, so he was feeling good going into the season, but I think he stressed when it took him a while to hit his first home run. I think a lot of you share the opinion that I hold, which is that Gleyber Torres would be more fun to watch if he was a guy who hit up around 290 or 300 with 15 or 20 home runs and a lot of doubles. That's the guy we need. And at second base, that's the prototypical second baseman. I don't want to see him trying to hit 40 home runs. I want him to be a good offensive player and a solid defensive player. And I think he's capable of doing those things if he can get into the right mindset. And ironically, if he hits a home run on opening day or has a really good first couple of games, that could take the pressure off from swinging for the fences all the time, and maybe he can have a great year. And another guy whom I think it's important to have a really good start would be DJ LeMahieu. Now, he had 2 MVP caliber seasons right in a row in his first 2 years as a Yankee, but last year was a big step back. He hit just 268. His OPS plus was down to 97. OPS was 711, both of those below league average. Just 10 home runs last year and just 160 hits. DJ was obviously struggling with something. We found out after the season that he had a hernia. He had surgery, and as I noted on the postgame a couple of days ago, his swing looks a lot better to me this spring. It was always a good swing, but it just seems a little bit quicker, just a hair quicker this year than it was last year. So I look forward to DJ LeMahieu silencing all the doubters right out of the gate, because if you have a healthy DJ LeMahieu who's hitting the ball all over the field, supplying a little bit of pop, and playing great defense, he adds enormous value to your team. You can't help but be concerned with the number of Yankees injuries over the past few years. We found out that Ben Rortvedt is struggling with an oblique injury right now. Just give him as much time as he needs, because we're going to need that catching depth, and you don't want that to linger all season long. In recent years, the Yankees have overhauled their strength and conditioning staff. They have hired Eric Cressey, who did a nice job last year in keeping Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton on the field, and hopefully that continues into this year. But they still had a record number of IL trips. Now, part of that was due to COVID, the COVID IL, and hopefully that will die down over time. But still, you have to be concerned with the number of injuries. And Aaron Hicks is a guy that the Yankees are really going to need to step it up this year. In 2018, he was one of the best bargains on the team, but in recent years, he's been just unable to stay on the field. And ever since he had Tommy John surgery, he just hasn't been the same. We need Aaron Hicks to stay healthy for at least 130 games, and not just because we need a center fielder and we need him in the lineup as a switch hitter, but we need to know what this guy can give us. The Yankees just haven't got enough of a look at him in the last couple of years to know if he's for real or not, if that one season was an outlier. He's shown some decent power, he's shown some good patience, but I think we're ready to see those translate into good stats. So we need Aaron Hicks to stay healthy, and he wants to shut a lot of mouths this year. If you happen to catch the R2C2 podcast the other day, he gave an interview where he basically said he wants to shut people up. I think I'm one of the people he's talking about, and I'd be happy to shut up. Just stay on the field. In addition, there's some other indispensable players that I don't think the Yankees can afford to lose for more than a week or two, and the IL has gone back to 15 days. You're going to need to keep DJ LeMahieu healthy. You're going to need to keep Giancarlo Stanton healthy. Now, Giancarlo Stanton had just one trip to the IL last season for a calf injury. Hopefully, the new program from Eric Cressey is doing wonders for him. He seems like he's going to be playing the outfield a bit more, which is counterintuitive to what you would think. You would think that with somebody who has a history of injury problems, you would want to keep them off the field and just limit his duty to those deadly at-bats that he can provide. But I think Giancarlo Stanton is the opposite because he's so built. He's just going to stiffen up if he's not playing the outfield. So I think it's a good idea to get him more playing time in the outfield. And if you go back and look at the numbers last season, he was much better after he started playing the outfield with regularity. And obviously, Aaron Judge is indispensable. The team is working on a contract offer for him. Would not surprise me if he signs something before opening day. Seems like a lock that he'll get $200+ million. I don't think he's going to get $300 million. Somebody in the comments said, I'm crazy for thinking he would get less than $300. But he's older than those guys who've gotten those $300 million contracts for the most part. So I think that, maybe 8 years and $250 could be a decent signing for the Yankees and for Aaron Judge, assuming, once again, that he stays healthy. All right, so let's talk about some of the Yankees' competition. Obviously, they open up against the Boston Red Sox, who beat the Yankees in the wild card last year, so you get a chance at revenge right out of the gate. The Yankees do catch a little bit of a break, possibly. Chris Sale, who was 5-1 with a 3.16 ERA last year, coming back from an injury, is injured once again to begin the season. So the Yankees are going to miss him on opening day. In case you missed it, the Red Sox did sign Trevor Story, and he's going to be an absolute beast in Boston. He's a pull hitter, and he's going to do well with that monster out there. Would not surprise me if he has a career resurgence after a down year. And then you got Rafael Devers, who scares the heck out of me. 38 home runs last season, 113 ribbies, 890 OPS. He's going to be a problem for years to come. Xander Bogaerts also had a really nice season last year. He hit 295 with 23 home runs, 79 ribbies, 863 OPS. And then J.D. Martinez, always a good hitter. He's going to be 34 this year, but last year hit 286 with 28 home runs and 99 ribbies, 126 OPS plus. Do they have enough pitching? Maybe not. Nathan Eovaldi will probably get the opening day start. He was 11-9 last season with a 3.75 ERA. They did lose Eduardo Rodriguez. All right, we got to talk about the Blue Jays because they just give the Yankees fits, as we saw today. Apparently true in the preseason, just as it is during the regular season. They won 91 games last year. They just missed the playoffs. They finished in 4th place in the AL East. They would probably make it this year with the new expanded playoffs. Their Pythagorean win-loss was 99-63 because they scored 846 runs and allowed 663 runs. Outstanding lineup led by Vladimir Guerrero Jr., 311 last year, 48 home runs, 1.002 OPS. He lost some weight. Some of the best bat speed in baseball. They lost Marcus Semien, who had 45 home runs last year. He signed with Texas. They also lost their Cy Young Award-winning pitcher, Robbie Ray, to the Mariners, but they picked up Kevin Gausman, who was 14-6 with a 2.81 ERA in the National League and won 107 games with the Giants. And they've also got Bo Bichette coming back, who it seems walks off the Yankees 2 or 3 times per year. 298 last year, 29 home runs, 102 ribbies, 25 stolen bases, caught just once. Seems like everybody in that Blue Jays order can hit. So watch out. Didn't even get to George Springer, who hit 264 last year with 22 home runs. Also, Teoscar Hernandez, 32 home runs. He's the forgotten man, 296. You see, they have a lot of guys that hit for a high average and have power. They're going to be a nightmare. The Rays are going to be tough because they're always tough. They won 100 games last season. Their run prevention was fantastic. They scored 857 runs, so they got a good offense. They allowed 651, despite having to piece together a pitching staff with a lot of relievers, a lot of guys who don't throw a ton of innings. They had 2 members of their starting rotation with ERAs over 5, but their bullpen was pretty shut down. They have some guys who are young and exciting. Wander Franco's a guy to keep your eyes on. He's just going to be 21 years old this year, 288 last season with 7 home runs in 281 at-bats. And then, obviously, Brandon Lowe is somebody that just gives the Yankees fits. Hit 247 last year with 39 home runs, 99 ribbies, 863 OPS. And then catcher Mike Zunino, 33 home runs, 62 RBIs, also an 860 OPS. So the Rays know how to score runs. They know how to shift and use all those analytics. They could be affected kind of negatively by MLB banning or adjusting the shift rules in 2023. So I think you're going to see them go for it this year. If they're playing well at the deadline, expect them to add somebody and make a run at a championship before MLB takes away one of their best weapons. And last but not least, the Orioles, who lost 110 games last year, but went 8-11 against the Yankees. And the 8 wins against the Yankees were more than they had against any other team. The Yankees are flat out going to need to do a better job of beating the Orioles this season because they're not much better, but they do have some good players. Cedric Mullins is a good player, 30 home runs last year. Ryan Mountcastle is a good player, 33 home runs last year. John Means, their left-handed pitcher, always gives the Yankees trouble with his great changeup. And Trey Mancini, who's going to be 30 years old, coming off of a nice bounce-back season, 21 home runs and 71 ribbies. I don't expect the Orioles to be much trouble for the Jays, Red Sox, or Rays. We'll see how they do against the Yankees. I don't blame you if you're questioning whether or not the Yankees have enough pitching. It seems like the Yankees are relying on Luis Severino to come back and be that dominant number 2, and he looked good in his first outing this year, even though he gave up some runs. The stuff was there. We'll see if the longevity is there. Jordan Montgomery got roughed up bad today by the Blue Jays, but again, that's not uncommon for pitchers in spring training. A lot of times they're just throwing fastballs, just working on throwing strikes, getting their arm strength up. But again, you don't want to get clobbered either. Nestor Cortez looked good yesterday. I think he's going to be in the rotation. We talked about Domingo Germán. He's probably out for most of the summer with that impingement in his shoulder. Hopefully he can heal up quick, but not counting on him. Jamison Tyone seemed better yesterday with his ankle surgery in the offseason. Somebody pointed out that it looked like he had kind of gotten away from the adjusted mechanics that he used last year with the shortened arm action. And I looked at the footage, and I have to agree, but I'm still waiting to see a little bit more from him this spring. Luis Gil might be the first guy called up. He was exciting last year. He is the real deal for sure. And then I think 2 guys that could get called up that you haven't seen much of are Ken Waldichuk. Seems like the Yankees are getting him a lot of work in spring on the side fields. He pitched pretty well yesterday. And then Hayden Wesneski, who's a top 10 prospect according to Baseball America. He has got some funky movement. Kind of reminds me of Kevin Brown, the way he can throw that hard 2-seam sinker in on the hands. Saw him break some bats already this season. I don't know if the Yankees are going to get anyone else, but if they do, Sean Manaea seems like a good possibility. We're still waiting on the A's to pull the trigger on those moves. Stay tuned. I will have news if and when there is some.